Voters in the 4th Congressional District will elect a new member of Congress this year. This is the seat currently held by Joe Kennedy. He is running for Senate against Ed Markey. The 4th District stretches from Brookline to Fall River. It includes 34 cities and towns with nearly 730,000 people. There are 8 Democrats and 2 Republicans running for the seat, and John Keller is introducing us to all of the candidates throughout the month.
In this installment of our series of visits with the candidates in the 4th Congressional District, we're talking with Democrat Jake Auchinloss of Newton. Jake, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So tell the voters who you are and why you're running.
I'm Jake Auchinloss. I am currently a city councilor in Newton. I'm formerly a Marine officer, and I'm recently a new dad to 3-month-old Teddy. I'm running because this country is in crisis. A pandemic death toll that exceeds Vietnam's, people of color afraid for their lives, an economy in ruins, our allies ashamed of us, a president who believes himself above the law and rules with incompetence and with a divisive and hate-filled agenda. And I am a leader who can rise in a time of crisis. I led in time of crisis in the Marines. I've led through uncertainty in business. I have worked through collaboration in local government, and I'm ready to be a leader in crisis today.
So if you're elected, what's your first choice of a committee assignment? And what do you suspect would be the first bill that you would try to get passed?
The current congressman sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee. It's an influential committee that allows him to be a champion for the district, including jobs and a green economic recovery. I'd like to succeed Representative Kennedy on the Energy and Commerce Committee, knowing it's a hard one for a freshman to get.
How about a first bill? Do you have something in mind?
It would depend on the results of the election in November. If we've got a second term of a President Trump, the job of the next Congress is going to be to fight his agenda tooth and nail every step of the way. This is a president who will only become more incompetent and more corrupt in a second term, and that will need to be the focus. If we have a President Biden and a Democratic-controlled Senate, we need to make progress on relief for local budgets to prevent cuts to education, on making healthcare a human right, not a job perk, and on a green economic recovery that transition us to a clean energy economy with good paying jobs.
Do you support the so-called Green New Deal?
I believe that we need transformative investments in green infrastructure in this country, and I've been the first candidate in this race to call for a carbon tax. That carbon tax can help us fund the improvements that we need, including reinventing transportation here in Massachusetts, which accounts for 40% of the carbon emissions that drive global warming.
As you know, there are many, even though the 4th District doesn't have a major military base in it, many residents of the district earn their living in these crucial Massachusetts sectors of military research and defense. It's been 15 years since Congress has done a base realignment and closure round, BRAC, so-called BRAC round. And there's been a lot of talk that this next Congress might be the time when they start looking at possible base closures and other cuts. If that happens and you're in Congress, can you see a scenario where you would support a measure that would impact on 4th District residents who work in this industry?
Well, I think we got to untangle 2 different threads here. One thread is about government support for research and development, which is a critical initiative for the federal government. For example, biomedical research and development is a major driver of the Massachusetts economy. And every $1 spent on biomedical R&D offsets $10 downstream of healthcare delivery costs. Creating vaccines, creating novel treatments, not only is an engine for the Massachusetts economy, but it's an important way that we improve patient lives and cure disease. So federal support for R&D is critically important. But then we have to have the separate conversation about DoD funding in particular, and about whether the size of our military and the missions that we're assigning to our military are appropriate. And there I believe that we need to end the forever wars that have consumed us for the last 2 decades, where we've spent $6 trillion, cost hundreds of thousands of lives. And we need to return that focus and that investment here to education, healthcare, infrastructure. The DoD budget no longer reflects the priorities of the United States.
Could you ever see yourself voting for a defense cut that would cost jobs in the 4th?
I think that is a hypothetical that needs to be treated on the actual particulars of the case, because there's so many things that go into that. As I've said, I've been a champion. I'm going to be a champion for jobs and a green economic recovery in the Massachusetts Fourth, and that is does not have to be head to head with understanding that the DoD budget and our forever wars overseas are no longer appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe we should defund the police?
I think we need to rethink and reinvent public safety in this country. I am the chair of public safety in Newton. I've been one of the quarterbacks for an independent police reform task force that will rethink public safety from the bottom up through the lens of racial justice. I was on the front lines of calling out racial profiling when I saw it. And there's no question that systemic racism plagues this country still 400 years after the original sin of slavery. And we need to recommit ourselves to the idea of equal justice and equal opportunity for all. So we need to rethink and reinvent public safety throughout the nation. And I'm someone who's looking at the examples of other cities like Minneapolis and is eager to see what works and what can be done here at home in the Massachusetts Fourth.
Are you comfortable with the term defund the police?
I'm someone who likes to look beyond slogans and focus more on the substance and the policy of an issue. I'd like to think that's something I've become known for as a city councilor in Newton, someone who breaks down complicated issues from first principles and then makes a conscientious choice about what's best for my constituents, what's best for public safety, and what's best for moving this country forward in a productive conversation. I think sometimes slogans can become just talking past each other.
Give me your elevator pitch that you would give to a voter if you had just a couple of minutes to persuade them to support you on September 1st. Go for it.
I appreciate that. And I would say that I'm in a field right now of other strong candidates. There's no question about it. I've got great respect for the other candidates running here. And I would also put forward as a premise that if you gave the 9 candidates in this field a multiple choice test of questions to be answered, there'd probably be a lot of overlap between those multiple choice answers. We are all Democrats and share a number of convictions. The next term of Congress, though, is not going to be a multiple choice test. The next term of Congress is going to be the most consequential term of Congress in our lifetimes. We are a country in crisis right now, and we need leaders who can handle crisis. We need veterans who can stand up to the NRA on issues of gun safety and finally draw a line in the sand about the safety of our public spaces and the safety of our kids. We need members of Congress who understand the healthcare industry and healthcare delivery as well as I do to finally make sure that healthcare is a human right, not a job perk. We need people who have my experience in both local government and the private sector in coming forward with green solutions for a sustainable future to finally make sure that we are doing everything we can to curb climate change and get to carbon neutrality as a country. These are hard, thorny problems. These are not multiple choice problems. I'm somebody who's led in crisis before, and I'm somebody who can lead in crisis again.